check. Hello, Ludka.
Hi, Vijaya. How are you doing today?
Doing well, Ludka. A little bit, on tenterhooks with all of these executive orders issued by the Trump administration, like a lot of people. And one question we've got from our listeners, they ask, is it safe to travel under the current administration, given all of this?
Well, it is definitely you and everyone else. Every single day, every single hour, there is something new.
Yeah.
And the travel, of course, is number one question because people travel, right? And forth.
Yes.
So I think because of there's so much uncertain. We don't know what's happening. There are a lot of unknown. It's probably really important to take extra caution, when traveling. Of course, I'm not talking about U.S. citizens. I'm talking about visa holders, those having advanced paroles, and so on. So as far as those having visas, for example, students, as long as they have visa, they have appropriate documents, they can travel. So far, we don't have any travel bans, but we do know, in the past 10 days, they increased the scrutiny at the port of entries. So it's important to have all the documentation. So for example, if student forgets I-20, they would normally call the school or so on. There is not too much time and not too much room for these errors. So it's important to have all the documents. For example, H-1Bs, they have to make sure they have their approval notice, maybe even pay stubs. So we're not saying you cannot travel, but probably best to avoid travel if it's not necessary. Now let's talk about those having pending green cards. So they have advanced paroles. To begin with, advanced parole is not a guarantee. So I think advanced parole itself states on its notice that it is not a guarantee that you're going to be admitted. So for those folks, that had some prior unlawful presence, I would recommend not to travel with advanced parole because it's risky. And again, unless it's a life or death situation, you don't want to take that risk given everything that we, see right now. Also, those that have, for example, I-551 stamps, these are green card stamps, but let's say they were placed in removal proceedings. I do not recommend that they travel. Again, too risky. Yeah. And those folks that don't have the visa, so in case, they need to travel, they would have to go to the U.S. Embassy. We definitely expect high scrutiny and vetting at the embassies. In fact, on January 20th, right away, President Trump issued executive order on enhancing visa vetting and screening. So let me just tell you a little bit on that and what we could kind of expect. And we know from the history, from a few years ago, what happened with the travel bans. So this order pretty much is stating that screening and vetting standards and procedures, should be now to the maximum degree possible. So applicants, whether applying for the visa, whether the port of entry, those that are already here, are going to be really screened to the maximum degree. And they're referring back to procedures that were in place in 2021. And in fact, the order states that within 60 days, President expects a report from Secretary of DHS, Director of National Intelligence, Secretary of State, identifying those countries that have very weak and deficient vetting and screening procedures. And potentially, if it's so bad, they could actually proceed with full or partial suspension on the admission. So because, again, we don't know what will happen, but just reading this executive order, makes everyone nervous.
Yes.
These are just some things that we can expect. Also, the order states that Secretary of State should also evaluate Foreign Service Manual. So we use that, for its Department of State's manual for visa issuance. So they're going to be evaluating and looking at each ground of inadmissibility. So I'm almost certain that it's going to be much more difficult to get the visa. There's going to be a lot more scrutiny, 221G, administrative processing. So, if you don't have the visa and you're in the United States, maybe that's not the time to apply for the visa right now. It's better maybe to wait just to see what will transpire, once we have more information, and then potentially, of course, if it's a life and death or emergency, that's a different story. But it's definitely risky to travel at this point in time because it's just so much unknown, and every day there is some new memorandum, new executive action, executive order. But just reading this order makes, I think, everyone nervous, especially if they issue some type of travel ban. This could happen like right away. It's not that they're going to give you 30 days. So
it can be effective
cautious.
Immediately. Yeah,
exactly. Be cautious. If you don't have to travel, don't. If you want to go, I don't know, to Mexico for vacation, well, maybe go to a different state. Go to California, Florida, somewhere else. But not the time to travel internationally, at least until we know more.
Thank you for, expressing that caution and laying it all out for us, and to travel or not to travel, that is the question. So thank you for that, Ludka. If you are feeling stuck and stationary in the US and Canadian immigration law maze, not to worry. The NPZ Law Group is there to help handhold you through your way, and they speak your language too, whether that's Tamil, Hindi, Punjabi, Gujarati or Nepalese. So get the help you need today. Visit